Hey everyone, and welcome to my last minute T100 Singapore preview and predictions. I am so excited for this. So excited for this race. It is going to be chaos and carnage out there. I think these athletes, some of them might be nervous for this one. I couldn't imagine having gone through that race last year and the ones who really struggled in the heat having to come back and face that again. Whew, the more I do these preview and predictions, the more I realize it's literally impossible to predict how they will go, and especially on a course like this. But please do let me know down below what I get wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts on who you think is going to do well and who's not. But with that said, let's dive into the swim, how I think it's going to unfold. And I think it's such an important part of this race because, you know, usually in hot races, we talk about the bike and especially the run being what really cooks people. But the swim here is actually so hot, and I think it already raises the core temperature so much. So athletes have to be really careful not to push it too hard. And we saw last year that this meant that a lot of the athletes came out of the water together, but also the course map really favors this as well because it's such a long straightaway at the beginning, which means there's, less buoys that can split athletes up. And I think we might see that again here this year. Although I do think that the strong swimmers in this field are not going to want that to happen because the bike power in this race is crazy. Even with Magnus Ditlev not being there, by the way, I forgot to mention that he is officially pulled out of the race if you didn't know because of his fractured wrist. So that will change up the race completely. But Josh Amberger, I think he'll be pushing the pace there at the front. He's got his call up. He's filling in for Javier Gomez, who's now confirmed to be off the start list. And I think he's going to want to take advantage of that. His bike and the run are not up to par with a lot of these athletes. I think he'd even admit that. So I think he's going to want a gap in this swim. Aaron Royal, I could see him playing his cards as well in this swim. So those two guys definitely for me will be at the front. Then the rest of the guys on there that are always undroppable in the swim, Sam Laidlow, Ben Canoe, Alistair Brownlee, Kyle Smith, and Daniel Backergaard. And that is going to be my front group of 7. I think there will be some separation in this race. I think those guys are going to try and cook some of the other athletes, make them get their core temperature a little bit too high in the swim. And I think these are the guys who will be able to hang on. So that's how I see it unfolding. I don't see any of these other guys going to the front and trying to pull a turn or anything like that. Maybe Sam Laidlow, but I think it just suits these 5 other guys just to sit in there, conserve energy, especially Ben Canoe, for example, who hasn't had a great result yet at 100K distance. Daniel Backergaard's looking to win this race, he said, so I think he'll sit in, conserve energy for the bike and the run. Same with Kyle Smith. He's got a well-deserved wildcard spot here, but he'll definitely be at the front. And then Alistair Brownlee, I think it showed in Miami that he's just happy to sit in, conserve energy now. And I don't see him going to the front at all. So that's my front group of 7. But I don't think they'll have too much of a gap if they do get separation, maybe 20, 30 seconds at most, because there's just so many other good swimmers behind them. I think the first person would be Mika Newt. I think he could easily be there right at the front, but I've got him just leading out this chase pack with Kakbar Stepaniak. Mika was 7th out of the water last year. Kakbar was 10th, so I expect them to be really close to the front. Rudy Von Berg, front back swimmer on his day. Same with Jason West. Same with Yuri Kulin, Peter Hemrich, and Fred Funk. So that is my chase group coming in behind. I think Peter Hemrich is the one to watch for this race. He was 2nd here last year. He managed, though, to just hold on to the front pack of 16, I believe, athletes last year and was the last one out of the water. So he'll be hoping for the same. But if anybody's getting dropped off the group, I think it might be Peter. He didn't have a great swim in Miami. He had a shocking start off the pontoon. So he'll be hoping for more. But I think he'll have a lot of confidence coming in this race with what he did last year. So I see him hanging on into this chase group. Frederick Funk will also be really interesting because we know how good he is on the bike. Perhaps the best cyclist in the field now without Magnus there. So a really good swim here could set him up to get to the front of the race. We'll talk about more about him on the bike. But then Yuri Kulin, he had a great swim in Miami. I think he'll do well. And then last but not least, Sam Long. He was 4 minutes down from Aaron Royal last year here. This course does not suit a weak swimmer just because of how hot it is, like we've said, and just the dynamics of being alone, kind of by yourself. Leon Chevalier will also be with him in this area. And I just don't see either of them being able to push the pace. And I think they'll just want to conserve it. And if they're 4 minutes back, I think with Sam having raced Oceanside, that could be a tall order to get to the front like he did in Miami. So I do see him around 3.5 minutes back at the very least. And it'll be a good gauge of how well he's swimming this year versus last year. Is he swimming about the same? So that'll be interesting to see. Now, the big talking point would be if he is only 2.5 to 3 minutes down, or even like 3 minutes, 15 seconds, I think he'd be really happy with that. So if you see that from Sam Long, watch out. He is going to be in form for this one as well. So that's how I see the swim playing out. Of course, a couple other names in there like David McNamee, Bradley Weiss, Clement Mignon. I think those guys will all be in this chase pack, but that's how I think it's going to go. Let's move on to the bike. I'm going to bring over the front athletes and talk about them first at the front of this bike ride. And first off, I think Ben Canute is going to drop off of there. Just hasn't clicked for him for the 100K races, like I've said. And his bike's usually a strength, so he could stay up there for a while, but I still do see him losing time. Same with Aaron Royal and Josh Amberger as well. You know, they all are pretty decent cyclists, so I see them sticking together despite losing time. But it'll be really interesting to see if they stay with that next strong cycling group. So those three will definitely fall off for sure. But now this is where it gets interesting and tricky, because I think only 3 of these guys will manage to stay at the front. And my guess is that's going to be Alistair Brownlee for sure. He's pretty much undroppable on the bike. He had the help of Mathis Margerie last time, and I think this time he'll get some help from Kyle Smith, who I think just knows his run's probably not as good as a few other runners in the field and will want to play his cards here on the bike. And Sam Laidlow, I think he's just so good, as we know, on the bike, and pretty much undroppable as well. And that means I think Daniel Backergaard's going to fall off just a little bit. He'll be right there back with the chase group of strong cyclists who we'll get into in just a second. But that's how I think it's going. You know, Sam and Alistair worked well together in Edmonton a couple of years ago. That's how I could see it going here. But I think Kyle is going to really push the pace. I think Sam, of either him or Alistair, might go to the front for a little bit. The only way I could see Alistair pushing the pace is if for some reason Kyle and Sam don't decide to do any work on the bike. So I see Alistair going to the front. But then behind them are the uber cyclists. Like Mika New is phenomenal on the bike. Kakpar is phenomenal as well. And then Peter Hemrich, 2 minutes faster than even Christian Blumenfeld last year, does insanely well in the heat. So you don't write him off based on his performance there in Miami. You'll have a lot of confidence in this one, like I said. So if anybody, I think it's him and Frederick Funk that could make it up to the front of this race. Although I don't see them doing it, to be honest, with just that firepower up there. So I see them really driving the pace here at the front of this chase pack. And then Rudy Von Berg, can he hold on? He didn't have a great race in Miami. I think he'll be doing a lot better, but it'll be touch and go to see whether he can hold with these guys. Yuri Kulin had a great run in Miami as well, but I think that is a next level strong front chase group of cyclists. So I see him kind of being in and around Rudy there, just a little bit off of them. Now, Jason West, I think he'll be in this pack a little bit further back on the bike. 7 minutes back in Miami. I'm not going to say it's going to be this bad. He's posted saying he's feeling a lot better. He's mentally ready for this race. But yeah, he's just nowhere near the caliber of cyclist as these guys in this chase pack. But then Sam Long, for me, is the most interesting to watch on the bike, along with Peter Hemrich, because he's just been riding so well lately. So we'll see if anything has been taken out of him from Oceanside. And I just think he's definitely at least going to get to here. I don't know, based off of his swim time, if he can make it all the way to the front like we've seen before. I think for me, the best he can do is get into this chase pack and ride into T2 just a little bit behind. Just because these guys are so strong, I don't think he's ever dropping a lot of these guys on the bike. So I see him sitting right about there with this front chase group of 6 athletes. That's how I think it's going to unfold on the bike, because Magnus isn't here. I don't think anybody is going to be able to catch onto a Magnus train going to the front of the race. Maybe a Sam Long train, depending on his swim. Maybe Fred Funk is has taken his bike to another level. So keep an eye out for that. Or Peter Hemrich, if he does his ridiculous bike that he did last year. So that's how I think it's going to unfold, though. I just think these three guys are too strong at the front for these guys to catch them. But I still think only 30, 40, 50 seconds, maybe they'll have lead coming into T2. But that takes us nicely onto the run. So Alistair Brownlee, I think we know is going to, I'm never going to say it again that he's going to go out conservatively, because it's just not going to happen, is it? But I think, it's my preview show. I think he's going to hold on. I really do. I think he's had the heat prep now. He's been out there training with Aaron Royal, and I think he's going to do a lot better. Hopefully just a touch more conservative, Alistair, please. So I think I see him going out the fastest. I think Sam Laidlow fall a little bit back. Same with Kyle Smith. I see him falling a little further back than Sam Laidlow, just based on previous performances. And then, man, out of that chase group of cyclists, I see Mika Newt having a phenomenal run. He was sick last year. He's super young. He's been training quietly. He's got a big opportunity as a wild card here to get some big points. So I see him pushing ahead, even of the likes of Sam Laidlow. Fred Funk, I think, kind of in a similar position. I think we might see his run hit that next level, but I don't think maybe as good as Mika Newt. So I've got him right there with Sam Laidlow. Kakbar Stepaniak's a little bit of a question mark. He could be running right up there, but he did lose a little bit of time on the run in Singapore last year. So I've got him right there with Kyle Smith. Now, Peter Hemrick was the fourth fastest run split last year. I think he's going to have a good run here. It does super well in the heat. Like I've said, I could see him running with the likes of Mika Newt. And Daniel Backergaard said he's going here for the win. I don't know. I don't know if he's got that Jason West level run in him to win the race if he's not at the front off of the bike. So I see him right here with the likes of Fred Funk, Sam Laidlow. Sam and him, we know, have a rivalry, so that's going to be interesting to watch. But speaking of a rivalry, Yuri Cool and Fred Funk, for me, that is the one to watch, because we've heard a lot about that recently, and I think Yuri's a better runner than Fred, so I think Fred's going to be hoping he's dropped Yuri on the bike. But yeah, I think we could really see these two guys close to each other throughout this race, which will be really fun. So a couple of good rivalries there to watch out for. Then further back, okay, this will be interesting, because Sam Long, I think this is where we might see how Oceanside's affected him on the run. So if he's doing well in the heat and Oceanside hasn't affected him, I could see him running all the way up to the front, just based on how well he does in the heat. With everybody else crumbling, I think Sam could do really well. But now if Oceanside affected him, which I think it might have, I could see him running with this group right here. So that's where I'm going to put Sam. A lot of you I know have picked him for even the win at this race. I feel bad doing that, but yeah, that's how I've got it right now. But then Jason West, oh man, this one is tough because of his performance in Miami, but his run is so good, and the heat, it favors stronger runners, right? And people who can pace themselves well. And Jason's always paced himself and run within himself despite the crazy fast times he puts out. So I think this does favor him, but I've got him kind of in that, getting up to that front chase group. So then, last but not least, Ben Canute. I see him just losing time here again, just hasn't clicked for him. Rudy Von Berg as well, Josh Amberger. Aaron Royal, I could see him gaining a little bit of time here on the run. So I'm going to put him right there with Kyle and Kakbar. But that leads us on finally to my predictions, how it's going to finish, because I think the run will change dramatically over the course of it because of the heat. So let's go into it. My predictions, how the men's race is going to pan out. And 100%, this was the hardest predictions I've had to make for a race. Like, I had to cut the edit right there for like 10 minutes because I just second guessed everything I had put for my finishing positions here. Doing more than 3 picks actually makes it way harder because you have to think quite more in depth. So this is what I have come up with, and I've got it referenced on my other screen here if you see me looking at it. In 7th place, I've got Fred Funk. I think he'll have a great race here. He skipped Miami for it, and yeah, I see him firing on all cylinders. But I see his rival, Yuri Kulin, actually getting the better of him. I think it's going to be so close between them, and I think those two could go either way. I just think the bike at this will be a little bit stronger, and that's why I see Yuri not finishing as high as he did in Miami, but he easily could. And then at number 5, Daniel Backergaard. I just like his mentality going into this one. He seems super relaxed. I know he's going for the win. Don't see him being able to challenge for the win here, but I think a 5th would be a great result for him in this field, although I know he won't be happy with that at all. In 4th place, I see Jason West running up there and, just really taking advantage of people crumbling on this hot course. So Jason West, 4th place. I think he's also just going for the win, though. Remember, this is the second race now of the series. The points will start to add up or not add up for a lot of these athletes. And, it's going to matter more and more with each race. So I think the likes of Jason West, who's probably aiming for the overall series title, will want to be higher than 4th, but I've just got him falling a little behind because of the cyclists in this race. Now I've got Peter Hemrick in 3rd. I feel like you just cannot not have him in your top 5 or top 7 at least, just because of what he did here last year. And he just no idea where he's at after Miami since he DNF'd there. And he's on a new bike. He's probably brimming with confidence going into this one. And I think he's going to do super good. That's why I've got him in 3rd. I see him running well. I see him biking incredibly well. It just all depends on his swim. And in 2nd place, I went with a bit of a wild card here. I actually think 2nd place was the hardest to pick. And I'm going with Mika Newt. This guy really broke through in 2022 when he got 4th at the 70.3 World Champs. He just doesn't have a weakness across the swim, bike, and the run. Actually, it's hard for me to pick which one is his strongest discipline, and I think we could see him. He was sick last year, and he still performed really well. I could see him not losing time on the bike, not losing time on the swim, and then having a great run. I think it'll depend really how he does in the heat here. So that leaves us with 1st place, and I think you guys already know who I'm going with, Alistair Brownlee. And that isn't just a fandom pick, to be honest. It is because I think he is going to be a lot better in the heat and just got the experience from Miami. And I think it's all going to click here finally for him, and he'll be holding everyone off from the front of the race coming off of the bike. I really do hope we see that chase group actually catch them on the bike and we get them all into T2 at the same time and see if Alistair is the fastest runner in the field or, at least fastest other than Jason West in the field. But yeah, I think he's going to get it done here and really put his name in contention for this T100 series. So that's who I've got. You can see right away, clearly, I've left off Sam Long and Sam Laidlow, and that's where I was really debating this. Sam Long, I think just Oceanside will zap him in this hot course. I think it's just the wrong double to do between Singapore and Oceanside. I think Singapore is just so hard. You'll need every bit of energy and heat prep coming into this one. Sam Laidlow, I don't know. It just cannot pick him for early races, but if he is on form, I could easily see him 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. I just don't see him coming anywhere below that, to be honest, if he's on form. But yeah, I just can't put him in, and I think he'll fade on the run. But yeah, that's who I've got. I think keep an eye out also for Kyle Smith, Kakpar Stepaniak are my 2 wild cards to keep an eye out for. But other than that, I think we've done it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know yours down below. And if you haven't seen the women's one, make sure you check that out if it's not already too late. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.